Hey Eric, let's take a look at your week 5 assignment 2 color value studies. I think, the color studies to me work more effectively as both a value study and a color study than I think the value studies are, going to be helpful. It's good to, I think, just get a practice in of the composition a few times, but, you've done the value stuff in the color drawings, which is not something that a lot of people do. So I'm just going to focus on those more than I focus on these, although they're both, they're both in place, I think, nicely. I will just say this is, I think, the way to go. This is probably not, because I think it ends up confusing a lot of things because you have the darker value and the figural stuff kind of meshing together a little bit too much. I kind of like the bottom one only because the length of the shadows would suggest that it's kind of either very early in the morning or towards dusk. And so I think having a sky that can reflect that is more appropriate, and it kind of makes a little bit more sense to the to the setting. You do have to be careful about your perspective. You have kind of a vanishing point where everything is moving to basically right here, and things like the things like the path would also be doing that. So you might have to actually move the vanishing point a little bit closer this way so that the path moves to that vanishing point as well as kind of the buildings, and that would mean the buildings don't quite as dramatically recede to this kind of point, which I think will be good because it feels a little bit odd how quickly it goes from a larger building to a smaller one. And so if the vanishing point is kind of over here, you'll have it, things will, I think, reduce in size to a more believable progression. You're going to have to be really careful about the grass because I don't think this for me is working. Anytime you have a texture where you just keep repeating the same mark over and over and over again means you're generalizing that texture, and I think you need to figure out a way to get it to be maybe a little bit more specific. It works for me more when you're doing it on a smaller scale and it starts to kind of fill up the area a little bit better. But I'm not sure as we move in closer, the continuous V's that are being made are really working as well and coming across as convincing. Figurally, these guys work out fine in their kind of silhouette form. This guy, you have to be very, very careful that he's being clearly kind of portrayed. I think it's a good idea to separate things like the belt from the jeans from the shirt, because then you have three distinctly colored elements and it's easy to separate them. I think here what happens is we're getting a little bit of this orange into a little bit of this orange, which moves into this yellow a little bit too easily, and so things tend to blend together, I think, a little too easily as well. The other thing would be to kind of watch your kind of proportions of the person. Make sure your hand is clearly rendered. Make sure there's a clear kind of understanding of the form and the texture of things like the gun handle, and that sort of stuff. This is kind of a great study. The next assignment that you get in, we really need to see things cleaned up a lot more, though, so that when we talk about what we have to do to get to the final, I think we have a better understanding of what your capabilities are in terms of rendering all of this different stuff. But I like the way it's going so far. It has a really nice sense of mood going for it in both of the colored ones, and I think you're making some pretty smart decisions in terms of the coloring, which is good. Make sure perspective is being rendered well and correctly on your buildings, and I think other than that, just good luck and keep it up.